Awesome. So welcome to our final meeting of 2024. Congratulations, you made it through a full year. So I'm going to call everything to order, and I need a mover and a seconder to complete and accept the agenda. Moved by Commissioner Root, seconded by Commissioner Collier. All those in favor? Awesome. Okay, I guess we're going to move right into the elections of chair and vice chair for the term of December 1st, 2024 to November 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the election of the chair and vice chair of the commission for the period of December 1st, 2024, ending November 30th, 2025 will now commence. We'll start with the election of the chair. I would ask for nominations for the position of the chair, recognizing that a seconder is not required.
Secretary, be pleased to nominate our excellent chair.
Are there any further nominations?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Stephanie.
Okay.
Any further nominations? See none. I do need a mover and a seconder to close the vote.
Second.
Any objections? Madam Chair, do you accept? Dan?
I do. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Now we'll move to the vice chair. I would ask for nominations for the position of vice chair, recognizing again that the seconder is not required. Are there any nominations for the vice chair?
You go. Okay. I was just gonna say, for vice chair, I would nominate Commissioner Collier. I like continuity.
That's where I was going to. So you have two nominations for Commissioner Collier.
Are there any further nominations? And you will stand. I just need a mover and a seconder to the vote. Triple. Any objections? None. Okay, this confirms that we have continuity. Thank you.
All right, on to number 4, any conflicts of interest to declare? I just think that sounds better than the team. All right, awesome. Okay, on to the approval of the minutes. Item number 5, everyone should have gotten those. So this is the approval of the minutes filed on October 30th, 2024. Need a mover and a seconder, moved by Commissioner Collier, seconded by Commissioner Little. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, so we have no delegations today. We do have a communications, so that's agenda item number 7. And this is the 54 accessible public transit.
I can quickly, yes. Essentially, we did have the meeting. The committee, the only action with respect to an actual recommendation was the committee did confirm their dates, meeting dates for next year. They did also receive the accessibility update that the commission is receiving and provided and had discussion on that. But that was essentially it for the meeting.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to note and file. By Commissioner Collier, seconded by Commissioner Little. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that's the quickest we've ever gotten to staff reports. Okay, so on to agenda item number 8, staff reports. So over to Mr. Gregor. This is the uniforms contract awards.
Chair, staff report number 1 is asking the commission to approve the contract award for supply of uniforms for our operators, inspectors, dispatchers, ticket clerks, and garage staff to Talbot Marketing / Uniforms. The term is for 5 years with the possibility of a 2-year renewal upon mutual agreement by both parties. And as noted in the report, an extensive RFP process was undertaken with the 3 compliance submissions, all invited for a presentation, including the viewing of samples, etc. As I noted, Talbot Marketing was the highest award in terms of score, and the purchasing team will be working with them to transition throughout December, to begin within January for the new year. I thought I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, so I need to move around to seconder on the recommendation, moved by Commissioner Collier. Seconded by Commissioner Madden, any discussion?
Just one question. Do we like go out to bids and tenders or how do we communicate the bid opportunity?
Bids and tenders
Bids
is
and tenders,
where
okay.
we're posted, yeah.
Other comments on it? Commissioner Odell, and then I see Jerry.
So I just have a few questions because I don't know the process here. So how often do employees get uniforms and is it fully subsidized? Like what is the actual process?
Yeah, the operators, get uniforms twice or once every 2 years.
Okay,
And we do that process based on the month and year when they were hired. So
Okay.
it kind of smooths out that process. So you've broken it out over 24 months.
Yeah.
And the contract includes an allotment of various items, shirts and pants and that type of thing. But with that, they've got a bunch of extra shirts, they can buy pants, that type of thing. So they basically have an allotment and allowance that they can do every 2 years. The garage, that's the same with the ticket clerks and dispatchers, inspectors. I think it's 5 years. Is it still 2? It's because their equipment's much more expensive.
Through the chairs, 2 for full-time, it's less for leave,
That's
but there's also,
Yeah.
some differences with things like parkas, like what they're. Stuff that lasts a little bit longer, that they
Okay.
can utilize the whole year, but yeah, we're great on.
all right.
And then garage staff is every year.
Gotcha, okay. And there was some commentary in here about the RFP being resubmitted with some exclusionary things, and one of that was sizing. Like, what does that mean for folks who are larger or smaller?
Fair enough. And what, we've always worked with Marks.
Yeah.
Our current supplier to do so, and whether it's we have to order elsewhere or send them out for fitting, that kind of thing. But when we had it very descriptive that was a requirement, Marks and Staples opted out of just submitting because they said, well, we can't meet your minimum.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was them not necessarily wanting the business or thinking we'll get you on the backside. I'm not sure. So so when we put that back in, we said, let us know what you're able to cover. And I think the commitment was up to 4X and but with Talbot guaranteeing the extra. And what they determined is that they would restitch, they would do a lot more in-house work to get it there. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what we did.
And then lastly, the relationship with Marks that you've had, like their evaluation score, it's still pretty strong. And what is the cost increase? What is that, 5.5%
Yeah.
for Talbot?
Yeah.
Like, does what you think you're getting Talbot really justify? I mean, we're all trying to do more with less. Does
Yeah.
it justify the increase in cost and expense?
Yeah, through the chair, I think it's a fair question, and I think what I noted was that we were hoping to go to RFP earlier. We had a lot of problems with Marks over the last 5 years in terms of order delivery times, that kind of service type of stuff. So having said that, we weren't gonna, we needed to evaluate the others. So the ranking is 50% price.
Yep.
And the results from all the other related stuff in terms of the ability to meet orders, the timeline to meet orders, the ability to actually provide sizing, like Marks has really got them, even though they have a store, that we can't go to that store. They used to come on site once a month. They've gotten away from that and just pushed a sizing kit to us and allowed us to do that. Talbot has facilities that they can do. They're happy to facilitate fittings for us. So that aspect of things was just what we were looking for in terms of taking it to that next level.
Okay, sorry, last question. Who's stronger in the industry? Within this industry?
Within this industry, I mean, Talbot has just come on in the last few years. We were able to do reference checks and they currently have a contract since 2019 with it was Guelph Transit. So I mean, transit in that, they have the London Fire Department and London EMS.
Okay.
Or Middlesex, I think EMS. Marks, yes, definitely has a lot of, obviously from our reference, it wasn't as great as they would have wanted, but through that reference checks, there was that history, in the markets. So.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. That's great.
Over to Commissioner or Councilor Crable.
Thank you, through the chair, just one additional question to answer on my, we are not changing, we are sticking with existing look, and these are gonna be just replacements, that's what we are going with?
Yeah.
Not changing.
I mean, through the chair, product is very similar. Not much change. I don't think there was even like there's only so much in the industry as far as the shirts and the pants and that type of thing. So
Okay.
yeah, not a significant change.
Thank you. No more questions.
I have one question. I get asked periodically why the paratransit drivers aren't in uniform, and I assume it's because they're contracted out service, right? Is that, because people have often said that paratransit, it would be better if the drivers, they would look more professional, because sometimes they look a little less than
Through the
professional.
chair, it's not a requirement that we've historically put in a contract. It's certainly something we could put in the next RFP, knowing again, any requirements that you put in like that, we would be paying for, because whoever's going to bid on it is going to assume they have to purchase a uniform. So that cost would be passed on to us. It's just not anything that we've ever included before. But if that's the will of the commission, when we go to RFP, we can certainly include that.
Okay, when you do the paratransit,
Right,
that's.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Sorry, this isn't like Canadian film where it's uniform supply that, you know, you rotate through and they do the laundry and then it comes back on the truck. You just buy or you get the uniform, it's up to you to launder.
Exactly. But through the chair, however, for the garage staff, we do have a service. They buy this wear and then it's labeled and then they have the ability to throw it in the
bin.
wash bin and it comes back to them.
Any repairs as well as well.
Other comments or questions? Okay, seeing that, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of the resolution? Any opposed?
Sorry, that was in favor. That was really fast. Sorry.
Commissioner Mann, are you abstaining?
No, I was just going.
Okay, so everyone, okay, great. Carried. Over to you, Ms. Fleschy, for the staff report number 2, Canadian Permanent Transit Fund update.
Thank you, and through the chair. So, received some good news, a couple of weeks ago with respect to the baseline funding portion of the Canadian Permanent Transit Fund. As you can see in the enclosure, it has been confirmed that our 10-year allocation will be just over $51 million, 5.1 million per year, beginning in 2026. The next phase of this will be for us to work with Civic Administration to submit a capital plan that includes all transit and active transportation work. So we essentially have to take our capital budget and then the active transportation pieces from the cities, mash those together into a document that we can upload to the feds and essentially highlight the programs that this funding would in all likelihood be applied to. We have had conversations between LTC administration and Civic Administration. Probably the first 2 years of funding will be to cover off the zero emission bus program, because we had hoped to get the zero emission transit fund, which has now been stopped. So it's looking like that would be likely for the first 2 years. And then after that, probably bus replacement. But even if we do identify that, that doesn't preclude us from, you know, if something comes up, you know, a project comes up that we want to utilize that funding for, that can still happen as long as it's, you know, as long as it's included in an approved capital budget going forward and it meets all of the existing criteria. The only caveat obviously is there is a federal election that will occur before this funding starts to flow. So, you know, there's a very good chance if there's a change in government, that this program could change completely and this will no longer be the case. But for right now, this is what we know. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so first we need a mover, a seconder to note and file. Moved by Commissioner Little, seconded by Commissioner Collier. Okay, any discussion?
Thank you.
Councilor
So
Little. I see you quite next.
So it says up to 40% of eligible costs for projects located within the provinces. So I would imagine we are considered within the provinces.
Yeah.
And the 60%, is it considered matching from city only, or could it be city and province, or what's the 60, where would the 60 come from?
That's entirely up to us. And I can say one of the Ontario Public Transit Association is actually doing advocacy days next week at Queen's Park. And one of the asks that we've got on the table is for the province to match the federal. So essentially in London's case, we would be looking to the province to give us 5.1 million a year. that would match what we're getting from the federal government, and then the municipality would have to make up probably that, it's usually around between 15% and 20% once you add those together. Now, whether that ask goes through, but that is an ask that the Ontario Transit Association is making for that matching funding. But right now, there's been no commitment from the province for any matching funding with respect to this program at all.
Did we have to do that, was it in the past that we had to do it all 60% municipal? There was never a provincial
There's-
involvement?
This is the first time the federal government has come out with a program like this where there hasn't been a requirement for matching provincial funding. So if we look back at the PTIF or the ISIP programs, which were kind of the last two infrastructure programs, in both of those cases, the federal government required the province to match and the province to agree on those projects. So there was a whole application process. Both of them had to agree before the projects can move forward. In this case, there is no application. It's just, here's your annual allotment. Here's our expectation. Use it as you see fit. So it's a little bit of a different program, and it is essentially what the transit industry has been asking for, because it allows that flexibility and it allows us to do longer term planning, because we know that that money is, coming for the next 10 years. So this, it's good news if it ends up flowing the way it is. And if we can get matching provincial dollars, obviously that's much better news for the municipality, because then we've got even more money to work with.
Okay, thank you, no more questions.
So Commissioner Little and then Commissioner.
So this is good news. So thanks for sharing this. But my question, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but obviously a change in government is highly likely. What is your opinion, the feeling of the group? Like, how will we see continuity on this? Is it something that there's enough controversy on that it could be on the chopping block? I'm not looking to nail you down at all. I'm just really looking for, sorry.
Sure. Now that this is recorded.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I mean, certainly, so the Canadian Urban Transit Association, and I think we had a report last month where I talked about that. I made the presentation
Right.
at Finance Committee. One of the requests that we had at that time was to make this, to adopt this and make this a legislative requirement, because that makes it much more difficult for a future government to just undo it. We've not seen traction on that. We will continue to ask. I mean, there is still time, but knowing when you see what's going on, I can't imagine that's something that the current sitting government is going to try to push through. And it would be difficult probably for them to get the votes to even push it through with what's going on. CUDA does work with a government relations PR firm with respect to advocacy, and what they're indicating is, the Conservatives are certainly aware that transit is an issue, infrastructure deficit is an issue. I mean, we've seen provinces where Conservative governments are in power, like Ontario. Conservatives are making significant investments in transit. So certainly that party does recognize what in my opinion, I think there will be something. I think there will be a delay. So if you see a new party come in, they're not going to simply just say, oh, the last party had this right, let's just roll this out. They're going to have to take a year to review the program and put their own spin, their own branding on it.
Yeah.
I think money will eventually flow. I don't think it's going to be in 2026.
Gotcha.
That again, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the transparency. Thanks.
The chair, can you roughly give me an idea of how much a zero emission bus costs right now?
I want to say 1.6
6 plus the
Million?
charger, plus the train.
plus, and then the charger, which is the charger's $500,000, but that will do 2 buses, a depot charger, so.
Okay, and follow-up question. When council put forward this commitment to zero emission buses, was it 2019? We're just on COVID.
Pre-COVID,
Yes, it was
wasn't
pre-COVID, yeah.
Do you remember how much the buses were at that time?
They were around when council approved the pilot program. We provided estimates for a whole lot of things. One of the big estimates in that pilot that they did approve was for the hydro retrofits that we thought would be required at the Wonderland facility. So we estimated very high on that because there was a potential that a transformer would be required on site in order to do it. throughout that process, now that Q-Trick has come in and done the study, we realized that that wasn't the case for this pilot. So that significantly reduced the total ask. So, and don't quote me on the numbers, but say the number that went forward to the city for the pilot was a total of 20 million, and about 8 million of that came out with that hydro. So the city was always counting on putting in half of the cost of the project. So if we go back to that 20, the city was counting that they were putting in 10 and they were getting the other 10 from the zero emission transit fund, which again is now gone. We're continuing to move forward with the joint procurement, which should be going out within the next month. And essentially what we've said is up to 10 buses, up to 5 depot chargers, and possibly 1 opportunity charger. So we've just done up to, and in discussions with the city, we've just said, once we figure out how much money we've actually got, we'll scale accordingly. So it could certainly be less than the 10 bus pilot based on the money that we know we've got.
Okay, that didn't really answer my question.
Sorry.
I just wanted to know how much the bus roughly costs that we estimated.
The cost of the bus, I would say from the estimate to now has not significant, it hasn't changed any more than a cost of a diesel bus. Like everything has gone up through the pandemic just because of supply chain and that type of thing. But the cost of diesel hasn't grown any more than the cost of electric hasn't grown any more than the cost of a diesel.
I'm just trying to see how we would get the most bang for our buck with 5.8 or 5.1 million. If the cost of 1 bus is 1.6 now, by the time we actually get the funding and this rolls out, what it's going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, and then still waiting because you don't want to order a bus if we don't have that
Well,
money.
so again, so the RFP, the joint RFP is going out in December, looking to be awarded probably in April. At which point we will have to come back to the commission and say, the RFP's been awarded, do we want to let a contract? That's the commission's decision. And at that time, it will be, and obviously we'll have had discussions with civic administration as well. This is how much money we've got to work with. This is what we're recommending we do. So that would certainly all come back to the commission. And yes, in all likelihood, it will be scaled down. But again, because it's a pilot, I mean, really what we're trying to do is get some buses on the road, operating on our routes in our terrain and our climate, all of those things to just get that experience with the actual technology. So, even if it's not 10, it's still going to give us the opportunity to do some testing. And because we did build it as a pilot, expansion buses, we're not taking away from our fleet, they're extra buses. So we'll be able to put those out on different routes. And if they don't operate the way we're anticipating, it's not going to negatively impact service.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor to vote follow. Action this question. This is the annual accessibility update. So this is staff report number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is just the annual update that does get posted on the website, consistent with AODA requirements. Again, I think the report generally speaks for itself. The table on the first page sets out the items that were included in the work plan that were accessibility related and the status of each. I would note that essentially the only one that continues to be a work in progress is the replacement of the booking system. Everything else that was on the 2024 work plan with respect to accessibility has been completed. The other thing I would just point out is we are in the final year, going into 2025, the final year of the current accessibility plan, which spans 2020 to 2025. So one of the initiatives on the 2025 work plan will be an update of that accessibility plan. We did raise that with the advisory committee when we met with them and indicated obviously that they would play a role in that. So that will be one of the things that will be included on the 2025 work plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. So first, I need a mover and a seconder to note and file. By Councilor Fiddle, seconded by Commissioner Collier. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Hello.
The corporate website and the updates that are happening, this has come up a couple times. So anything that's out of compliance is checked and updates are made on a monthly basis, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that timing seems very lengthy to me. Like, is there not the ability to build, I know I'm oversimplifying, but logic somehow into the site that identifies when something is out of compliance, kicks out an alert so that things can be addressed on a more timely basis? Like, in this day and age, doing fixes once a month seems very infrequent to me, especially if these are relatively minor things that need to be updated.
I think it's not so much about, the complexity can be a problem because what we have to comply with is WCAG compliance, like WCAG measures, which is a consortium that creates measures and they change.
Yeah.
So those things can change, and the checkers that we use to go and check against that are updated to accordingly to match those WCAG requirements.
Okay.
So it's not, it wouldn't be a static thing that you could just go and check. It needs to be something that, you know, that's keeping current with the
Right.
requirements. The real issue that we have is essentially we have our corporate communications person that reports to Carolyn and one person in IT that helps fix the coding stuff. So that's the people that work on our website, other than obviously planners put detours, like there's people adding stuff, but in terms of going, running that checker and then chasing down what the issues may be is essentially, you know, this much of kind of two people's jobs. So it's more about staff capacity than it is about the actual process. I will remind the commission that a lot of the stuff, and I mean, we've seen, you know, people come forward and say, run this through checker, and there's 12 things that are wrong.
Yeah.
11 of those things are the fact that we have commission agendas in PDF format, which the compliance checker is saying PDF is not compliant, but we also have it in HTML.
Right.
So technically our website is compliant, but it's pulling things that it's saying, but that isn't. But we know that we have people that want PDFs. So in a lot of cases, we in whole are compliant, but we've got pieces on there for valid reasons because people have asked for that alternative format that aren't necessarily, but if somebody was looking for the compliant
Right, if that
version,
was
they
the
could
sole
find.
format, then we'd have an issue, for sure.
Exactly,
Yes, that I
exactly.
understand.
So,
Sure.
so again, it really is just a matter of resources and the fact that, again, like we have an IT department of 3 that keep everything that we have going here up and running. So it's resources. If it's something, you know, the commission thinks is a priority, we can certainly look at speeding that up, but that is going to affect something else because at the end of the day, there's 3 people.
I will say through the chair that once we identify an issue, so there was the contrast between the font. Once we've identified that, then we run through, and like Kelly said, it just takes time to fix every page. And then we also share with anyone that updates the website, we'll share with them, like, starting now, don't do this, or, so it's just a process.
Right, and so then if we were, and I don't want to dwell on this, but if we were, let's just say, change that frequency to weekly rather than monthly, is that an extra FTE that's required for that? Is that half an FTE? Like, can that be quantified?
I mean, we could certainly take it back and have a look. I certainly know it's not a full FTE.
Yeah.
It would be more, what is the impact on your current workload and what would fall off the table if we
Right,
said this is a
what can't
bigger
be done?
priority,
Yeah,
right?
gotcha.
What wouldn't get done?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Actually following up, with Commissioner Little's, question, how much of the compliance issue that we have is load driven by us in terms of content that we're actually posting versus posting driven by WordPress on the back end, which changes the hosting environment that, you know, we don't necessarily have control over?
A chunk of it is WordPress, and we have had discussions about, and you may see on the 2025 work plan that we need a full redo of the website again. Unfortunately, that's an outside source that we hadn't identified in the budget that you've approved, but that maybe, again, it's not going to fix everything. When we looked at the end of the year, remember when we talked about, we had a bunch of plugins that were no longer compliant? That was, they had been compliant, WCAG changed, and they didn't get updated. As a result, there's a bunch of functionality that's no longer on our website because those plugins are not compliant. There's not a replacement. So we've just pulled that functionality off the website. So, but some of it is WordPress and there's probably, you know, things that are out there that are better, but that's going to cost money and take time. We're gonna have to pay somebody. We don't have anyone in-house that can
Right.
design a website from the ground up, you know, within the current complement.
Yeah. And then with Wicked and the testing that we actually do, is this like a vendor provided tool that we're using, I mean, I know that there are any number of providers out there that actually will sell a compliance service for AOTA. They all have their testing tools. You can actually take a single site and run it through testing environment A, B, and C and
And get
get
different
3 different answers. Which to then mean, since the testing tool is really designed to sell the consulting services to fix the problem, which may or may not be in the back end. So I guess my question is, do we have a gold standard tool that we're actually referring to that is a standard that we can actually point to, so that when we do have these compliance issues where people are using third-party tools, we can actually say, no, we've actually used, you know, whatever the government of Ontario uses, or, you know, whomever, to say, this is the gold standard measure that we've chosen to use, and we see ourselves as being in compliance.
So historically, yes, the province used to list a number of approved compliance checkers, and they've since removed all of that. I think probably because the market has been flooded with compliance
Right,
checkers and the province didn't want to be in that game. So there's no such thing anymore as an approved. We've tried numerous and we've kind of landed on one that seems to work the best and give us the best feedback with respect to how to fix things.
Yeah.
So like it's the most functional for us in terms of trying to fix things.
And it was on the provincial.
It was, yeah, historically it was
Successive.
one of the ones, yeah.
It's just, you know, it's rather inelegant to get whacked on the head about being not compliant, but it's because we've chosen a tool that is vendor driven and is imprecise because they're trying to sell consulting services that ends up judging us perhaps incorrectly, right? So.
I can say, I mean, we've looked at a number of them and you can pick any website that you can
Oh.
find on the internet
Oh,
and
yeah.
run it through a checker and it's gonna come back and say it's not proper.
For sure.
And that includes the city, that includes like, it's, yeah, like it's every site, right? So it's
Ministry
just
of
a matter
Agriculture,
of,
Food and Agribusiness.
well, and
perhaps.
it's a matter of how, you know, how quickly you can, how
Yeah.
quickly you're checking and
Yeah.
responding. The other piece that I would remind the commission too is there is verbiage on the website under our accessibility section that if anyone's having any difficulties accessing anything, they can contact Carolyn, like all of that is there. We've never received a contact from anyone who's had any issue with anything on our website. So
Yeah.
but that option is there.
And through the chair, I see that more as part and parcel of modernization as opposed to a standalone by the committee, just for the record.
Commissioner Madden.
And just along the same lines, and I am not an expert in this, I only listen to people who tell me things. Has staff who write reports been trained on how to make their reports accessible? Like I know if you're writing a report with a Word document, that you can run it through the accessibility check on there and it tells you exactly how to make, like it's often the charts and the data and that kind of stuff that is not readable as I understand. And that the accessibility checker on that, I know that at the city, they train the people writing the reports to make the reports themselves accessible.
So the
Which
person that
cut
posts
down
on our web, so it's a staff member that takes our reports and then posts them in HTML, puts all the tags on all the images and the tables. Yes,
Yeah.
she knows how to do all of that. It's not so much about writing the report, it's about how you post it when you put it in HTML format. The more the issues that we're having, like where something random gets posted, and for example, and I'm not saying it is, but maybe one of Katie's planners posts a detour and the font that they've used is slightly off in the color and it's not giving the appropriate contrast with the background page. So it's things like that. And as Carolyn said, when we find those, then the memo goes out to everyone that's posting, okay, going forward, you can't use this, you have to use this. So it's things like that that's iterative, but because we've got so many people that are trying to post things to try and keep the public as up to date as possible, those things will happen and they do get fixed and, you know, and they get corrected going forward.
And just follow up through the chair. And do they get trained, the people who are doing that, do they get training on this, or is it all left up to the person?
I mean,
who's the IT
they've had enough training to be able to go in and post on the website. And again, you looking at it with your blind eye, it looks like the contrast is fine. It can be something that's just happens to be, you did a cut and paste out of Word and the font that you had in there was slightly off, like things can happen like that. They know what the protocols are. It's just, again, when you've got that many fingers in the pot, things can happen.
Commissioner Collier, did you have a follow-up question?
Good.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Please.
No.
Joe?
Sorry, one quick question, and I'm sorry, I lost the report. Sorry, there was, the last column said completed for 2024. There was one that said, work in progress, and there were some that just said complete or completed. Oh, sorry, complete, if I remember correctly. So the complete with no date.
The complete with no date were things that were specific to this year. The
Okay,
complete for 2024 are standing items. Like every year we go through and make sure that we comply with all the various standards because they can be updated. But then the ones that just say complete are ones that were specific to the 2024 work plan. So
Okay.
that's what the differentiation is.
thank you. Thanks. No more questions. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of noting the timeline? Any opposed? Over to Mr. Butler for the 2024 road construction and special events update.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Staff report number 4 is our latest update to road construction and special events happening throughout the city. Generally, you will see no significant material changes from our last report to you in October. But of note, however, I wanted to mention that regarding the downtown loop, we talked about the effect that effective November 24th, we were going to commence use of transit signals in the downtown loop from the transit lanes. So just as a verbal update for you on what we've seen to date. There have been a few reports back from our operators and inspectors that some, public vehicle traffic has not quite figured out that the transit signal head doesn't apply to them.
Really? Seen that in action? Yeah.
Yeah.
The
good news is Sorry. The good news is we've had no collisions or near misses as we've trained our drivers to be on the lookout for these type of events. And as we go through the learning process with all the motorists, it actually has been improving each day as we go along. We've been in communication with the city about our concerns about how long the signal phase lasts, and they have extended the time for allowing more buses to clear the intersection through that protected phase. So there's been good collaboration with the city there. And then we've had some media interest lately in transition, and we've, helped participate in getting the message out to the public. And, I can report, like, we were out today in a bus and saw no motorists, impede in our way or go when they shouldn't have gone. So I think it's growing pains, but it's certainly gotten better each particular day. And that's my update. If you have any questions,
Good to see it live.
So I need a mover and a seconder to note and file, moved by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Little. Thank you. I was gonna make a joke about Scrooge, but then I withheld it when you said that there's like no changes since October, but then I thought I'd make it once you told me about the traffic signals. Any discussion? Mr. Collier?
It's not going to be education or taken by the city, major projects or whomever to actually educate drivers, because, I think about, when I did my 365 and read my little driver's handbook, in 83. Bike boxes hadn't been invented. Bike boxes are now here, and there's nowhere you can actually go to look to see what, as a driver, I need to do when I encounter a bike box, right? The same thing with this. I mean, phase traffic signals, there's something new in London, and I think about Sarnia and Wonderland and how long it's taken people to figure that out, and that intersection's been there for what, 3-ish years now? So I'm just wondering, as part of the BRT project, is Jenny and or team and or city comms actually going to be doing some PSA and consumer education?
Yeah, through the chair, so far, we know that there's been Facebook, social media update from the city. They posted something on their website about the fact that the signals have not gone live, and it's that same message to the motorists that the yellow signal head is what applies to you, and those smaller black ones don't apply to you. That's the message. I think that's my understanding of what's going on so far. Katie,
Through the chair, their focus is on friendly signage, at the moment. They do plan to do a larger, campaign, to inform the general public with regards to the contraflow lane, so that will happen in the spring next year, but at this point, for the downtown loop, their focus is on, what they're referring to as friendly signage.
Like, listen up, stupid head, don't do this.
No,
That
it's
kind of
more of
friendly
a,
or-
hey, this is something new, kind of fun, cutesy
New- new to
signage on the
prove, yeah.
side of the road.
There was an Insta story on it too, I saw, so.
And it was on the news last night. I think last night.
Yes, there has been a lot of media interest in this, so I believe Jenny Dan has done some interviews, and then as Mr. Butler indicated, we went out today to put some more media to as of the changes.
Comments or questions? That's okay.
Thank you. One question through the chair. Hello, Katie, when I sent you yesterday the PSA for the for Fanshawe Richmond, were you already aware of it, or when did they let you know, out of curiosity?
Yes, through the chair. We've been working with them for the last couple of weeks on this. So we've been going back and forth because they weren't sure if they were going to have a paid duty officer, if there was going to be an overnight closure. We were working very closely with them. We had gotten confirmation the week prior that they didn't think there was going to be a paid duty officer, but that they were still going to allow us to be flagged through the intersection. So yes, we've had a very close relationship. All of the work up at the Fanshawe and Richmond project has been very collaborative with the city.
Great, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of noting and filing? Any opposition? So, okay, number 13.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So these are the dates, that we're proposing for next year's commission meetings. They fall on the last Wednesday of every month, and the start time of 5 p.m. And then, as we've done in the past, we've just made the July and December at the call of the chair.
Okay, so I need to move on a second, note and file. By Commissioner Ritz, seconded by Commissioner Cleaver. Any comments, questions with respect to the schedule?
You can do and send out.
Calendar
the
invites.
invites. Thank you.
Very helpful.
The big question on everyone's mind, will you remind us?
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor to notice file? No opposition? Seeing none, so carried. Okay, over to Mr. Gregor. Let's do 6, 7, and 8 together as always. Great.
Pre-noted report about the year-to-date results for the period ending October 31st, 2024. Specifically, the staff report number 6 of the conventional transit operating. Key variances through the first 10 months include favorable operating revenue from much higher than anticipated interest rates. This continued from last month. Favorable personnel variances due to the ongoing staff vacancies, and favorable fuel prices, which did continue this month. As previously discussed, the specialized net expenditures are favorable also on the year-to-date basis. The surplus is mostly explained by the favorable contract and service costs, resulting not only from the reduction in service hours, but also the favorable rate variance. We renewed the contract in August, or not renewed, but the price changed in August based on CPI. It was a little bit less than what we had budgeted. And also the application of penalties to the service provider for not meeting the contract demand. That's an offset that hence reduces the overall rate that we include. The capital program is nearing completion for 2024, with any of the projects that are not completed in 24 that will be subject to the 2025 recosting process in March. So we take a look at that and apply additional funding for 2025. Also in the report is an update on the specialized projects, i.e. the specialized scheduling system and the handheld devices and smart cards. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on that. As noted, work on the scheduling system is progressing with training for end user schedules for the first 2 weeks of December. There's still some probably could provide some more insight if you have any questions on that. And further, the smart card readers have been fully deployed on the Boydo vehicles that are now in use. We've been monitoring them, and it appears that it's been working well. Some of our initial feedback was in terms of cards not working. A lot of it was they didn't have the actual fare on there, but it's allowed them to get that done up. And it was kind of interesting. There was another example and I wondered if it would occur. We've had, there was 2 users of Specialized that have been for the last 3 years auto recurring their pass, when they probably could have just flashed the card and gotten on, because obviously there was no way of checking. But when they went to use it the first time, it failed because it was trying to action 2 years worth of cards onto their card. So it essentially crapped the bed on that one. So we were able to see it, work with Shane Bachman to have them take all those unactioned items out. Because as I said to the group, I said, these are the people who have been doing it right. Like, I mean, they've been doing it for 2 years, paying properly, and then their card doesn't work. So I said, we need to get this right for these folks. So that's a good news story. And there's only a couple of those. So, but with that, I'd be pleased to answer any other questions on how it's going.
Commissioner Madden, and then Commissioner.
I actually just have a comment that I know my son has used it without fault starting like for at least the last 2 weeks, and I was able to go on today and see that, and be able to see that he's done it and be able to renew it so that he can, you know, put $50 on every time
Yeah.
it goes down. So, and he was like thrilled and he said, it works. So I just wanted you to know that. And
Through the chair, one of the functionalities you can do is you could set it up to be a threshold. So once it gets down
I
to
did
10
that.
bucks, you can
Yeah.
have it updated. So
I
it's
did
kind of
that and
perfect.
it worked beautifully. So thank you.
Commissioner Little?
So the only question on the smart card is the error messaging. So is that the error message, card not working? Or can there be messaging that's more descriptive?
No, through the chair, I think that's just how we kind of summarize
Okay.
them and how they,
Okay.
Voigo identified to us. It is fairly descriptive and there is the ability to query the card.
Yeah.
Obviously, the operators have to become familiar with that to see how much stored value you have left on it, whether the period pass applies to you.
Right.
So we get that where someone will out and purchase a pass now, but it's not going to work until December 1st kind of thing. So, but it will say non-sufficient funds. It'll say already tapped.
Okay. That's good.
Some of the issues that we were having, and I think education, it only takes a couple days or a couple, instances of it. They're very sensitive, the readers. If you raise a card by a beep, invalid fare, but it just didn't read the card
Like every
properly.
debit machine out there right now?
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's pretty,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
And then the only other question was, do we still have the 48-hour delay for loading value online and adding a pass online?
Through the chair, with this system, no, it's real time.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I have a device that I test, it's at my desk.
Yeah.
And I can update something or action a pass. And because they're on a SIM card, they're basically connected all the time.
Yeah.
It's going to get it, every 5 minutes kind of thing. So
Okay.
things that happen, you register your card, you add value to it, it happens right away.
Okay, that's good.
The conventional fleet, we say 48 hours to allow for it, but essentially you could put, be in your pajamas at 1 a.m. and the next morning you get on the bus, it's going to work. For
Oh, okay.
9 times out of 10.
All right.
Basically that, every time the bus leaves the garage, it gets that update. But sometimes they're maybe on a hoist or, that type of thing.
Right.
But those are some of the issues that make that not as foolproof.
Okay.
We say 48 hours, but really,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be as long, but on
But
the specialized
is
side,
near real time.
it's like,
Okay,
it's real
perfect.
time.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
Capital plan and our presidential election in the United States and our potential for tariffing. Do we think that we've got tariff risk in terms of pricing for stuff coming in Canada through the United States, where we're actually gonna have a reciprocal tariff here in Canada to match what is happening in states? I know it's kind of subjective, but do we think that we actually have a capital risk here that we should be identifying?
I can start. I mean, we just had actually discussions about this at CUDA last week, and I mean, obviously buses is the big one.
Right.
And it's not so much about tariffs as it is about Buy America and how much oomph US will put into Buy America for buses when you've got, like, New Flyer is basically the only manufacturer that is doing both Canadian and American.
Right.
And if they put too much emphasis on Buy America, that means that a whole bunch more of our bus either has to be built there or or Flyer has to expand, and they have done an expansion to be able to do more finishing in Canada, because they're also afraid that Canada is going to up the percentage
Right.
in order to qualify for funding. In terms of like tariffs for product, I mean, all of the contracts that we've got have got that escalation clause built in that will, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
it'll
be
be what
stuck,
it's gonna be,
we'll be
right,
stuck
okay.
paying whatever it is.
Yeah. Cause I mean, you know, like the story about just automotive, right, is that automotive assembly, you can actually cross the border 8 times back and forth, you know, at Windsor, just in terms of when you get an initial part assembly to final completion. And I'm just wondering, you know, is, you know, Winnipeg and Flyer as integrated with their US facilities? You know, they may not necessarily be moving chassis, but would they be moving components across the border? And would
It's
that
actual
potentially be a risk?
It's actual chassis.
The chassis goes back over to the US to get the final driveline to the chair, have the final driveline put through it.
Wow.
So it's all built in Winnipeg, then it gets trucked or trailered or trained across the border, have the final driveline put through it.
Okay.
But Flyer they just received a grant from the federal government to expand their facilities in Winnipeg so that they can finish buses in Canada, because they kind of saw this coming. But again, I mean, they obviously have to build and get that built out.
Answer questions? Councilor Pivoy.
Thank you, through the chair. It was a good month, spending from September to October, we got over, bottom line, over 1.5, which is great. I want to ask you, regarding the operating, it's driven with the interest rates. How did we, how was the projection for next year? In terms of the operational, in terms of the interest, were we there kind of aggressive or kind of more cautious?
Through the chair, we were a little more cautious. We, you know, reduced that a little bit. It's hard to know where it's going to land, but I mean, hence the reason why we're probably more cautious this year in terms of why we're more favorable, because it's just not something you wanna bank on, right? You know what I mean? So it's,
So we were a little bit cautious.
yeah, and obviously, in March, we'll have the ability to update that, you know, the budget for what we did last August, so we'll be able to update rates from where they were there and.
Okay, thank you. For the specialized, it's a really good growth, 23 to 24. But if I look at this month from September to October, we fell a little bit more behind. Still the same issues in terms of because we have a little bit less again.
In terms of hours?
Hours, yeah.
Yes,
Same issues.
Yeah, I think Mr. Wilson might be able to comment on that, but it was, October was definitely better than September in terms of some of those missed hours. So we still struggle a little bit, but.
Yeah, through the chair, October was considerably better as reported at the end of last month compared to September. November's been tough again. They're experiencing some difficulties with manpower, doing everything that they can, responding to further requests. We're seeing 2 additional vehicles being extended in the evening because the houses to change some hours. So we're having a hard time filling that. So there's a handful of things that are contributing to it, but it continues to be manpower availability.
Through the media, I think we all found out about the union, potential union. Any update on their end? Is it gonna happen? Are they negotiating?
Through the chair, my understanding is that Boyville was challenging it with the labor board, and that's not been heard yet.
I also think we just want to be really careful about that, you know, we're not in camera here, we're on a public agenda and commenting about other people's union activities. I would just be a little concerned about the propriety of that.
As I said, I want public knowledge because even media reported it.
That was in the
I'm
media.
looking for media. Sorry, I'm looking for public knowledge. The last one, the capital, and we had the bus replacement month on month, and I know we have the explanations, but we spent 174,000 last, and now 820. So there's difference of 600,000-700,000. Was there some payment or?
Yeah, through the chair, it's basically the auxiliary equipment, like the cameras and fare box or not fare boxes, radios, that type of thing. So it's just in preparation of the buses coming on site in March. Is that what you're anticipating, April now?
First bus will be it's scheduled to be on property through chair on January 15th. All the auxiliary equipment he's talking about, if I don't purchase that or order that 6-7 months in advance, it wouldn't hit for the same time the buses come. Because their stuff's all delayed, so I'm always on top of the ball to make sure that's always done ahead of time. And then our body shop will actually prep components. So that when the buses do come, it just makes the transition that much quicker to go through.
Thank you. A lot of facility upgrades, we had here today last time. 226, and now we have 590. So we did in 1 month over 300,000. Was it the work over here or Wonderland or both?
To the chair, the bus wash at Wonderland.
Oh, that was the one majority?
Yeah, and there's still more to come. It's progress build, so, once they get to the point where they sign off and it's working, then the last payment would come through, but I believe the biggest portion of that was the progress building for the.
Through the chair, there's 4 projects that are part of that one project. So I was over there all day today and they're firing the wash up. American Thanksgiving right now, so they're actually gonna fire the wash up on Monday or Tuesday of next week. The wash will run. The fuel lane itself was being constructed this morning for the actual fueling station. And then the fuel lane itself with the grading is supposed to is December 9th, if that's up for there. And then just the ductwork on top of that. The ductwork is December 15th that we're installing ductwork. So I'm running tight to the end of the year, but that's just the way that things felt, because we had to wait for the wash to get here.
Okay, thanks. Smart car program, we spent in 1 month the 80,000, but are we gonna go, are we gonna reach the 408, or is there gonna be any savings, so are we gonna go over?
Through the chair, I think there may be another 10% final sign off that has to come through, but I think we're gonna be a little bit less than the 408, so, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions.
Let's on to questions. Seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor to note and file staff reports number 6, 7, and 8. Any opposition? Okay, so we have no in-camera stuff to deal with today, so we have our next meeting, end of January 29th, 2025 at 5 p.m. And then I now need a member and a seconder to adjourn. Director Strickler, second by Commissioner. All those in favor? All right.